Greetings, my friends, and welcome back to the Home Slice. I'm so excited to intro our next tournament because we are working from the smallest edge lengths up to the largest, and we just finished with the little guys, and here we are with a tournament of the middle guys, starting with a knife I have always wanted to carry, the Kizer Gemini. Kizer Gemini, for me, was sort of popularized in that sort of late 2010s period of time, mainly by Pete at Cedric and Ada. But the flow lines of this design by Ray Laconico are just beautiful. It's cool as a little Ray Laconico etched into the spine of this knife. This version is in N690 and obviously black coated with anodized aluminum handle scales. It's just a little bit smaller than the original Kizer Gemini, and they call it a mini, although it feels like 90% the size of anything that I ever saw tested. This Kizer Gemini, this thing of beauty, is the most crisp detent I think I have felt in a long time. No assist, but it just rockets out of there at the lightest push. It was designed in sort of that period of time where you put a big chunky flipper sticking out there to just make it real clear what that was for, which is not necessarily my favorite, but I think just about everything else about the aesthetic of this knife just speaks of smoothness and refinement. It's just a really cool, well-executed design. It's got enough spine thickness to not worry about it. It's got enough grind taper to be slicey. And in this first leg of the tournament, it is going to be taking on the reputable Manly Knives Wasp. Now, there's a very different opening mechanism here, so you might be confused, like, why did you pair these two knives together? A really stiff slip joint with a rocket out, super smooth, detented flipper. And the reason why is because these basically have the same blade. Like, I don't know if I can effectively overlay that for you visually, but the blade shape on these is so similar, and it was hilarious. I was actually doing the measurements on these two knives, and you know, the Gemini's got 1 extra millimeter of edge length. They're so close. They're within 0.005 of an inch in their behind the edge thickness, with the Manly knife being thinner. The amount of square inches they take up in your pocket is almost exactly the same. The spine thickness on the Kizer knife is 105,000ths of an inch, and the spine thickness on the Manly knife at the furthest portion of the grind here is 106. And so they're very similar in terms of blade shape, and I assume that the blades of these two knives will perform very similarly. We're rocking CPM S90V in this particular Manly Knives Wasp, and this is going to be a real measurement of how much does steel make a difference, because if you looked to Laren Thomas's ratings from his measurements on edge retention, N690 I believe is 4.5 out of 10, and S90V is 9 out of 10. So this should have double the edge retention of this knife. With most other variables about blade size and blade geometry being basically identical. So this will be a fairly pure test of how much do you notice a difference in edge retention, especially when two blade designs are very similar in their geometry and their proportions. I'm going to best test these blind before I use them, and then, as is usual, as has been my custom during these tournaments, I will unveil the best reading that they reached at the end of the video. They have both been sharpened with a dual grit sharpening method with a Veneve 400 grit stone on the back side and 800 grit on the front side, and stropped with stroppy stuff diamond compound. They both have beautifully smooth push cutting edges at this point that are capable of doing some pretty nice cursive cuts, and they're generally feeling really good. I've been enjoying this sharpening method in terms of a sort of mid-grit, mid-aggression feel, but at the same time, those sort of medium-sized particles of the Veneve 400 and 800, they are really versatile in terms of not damaging knives that have really big chunks of carbide, like this N690, but still being fine enough to sort of bring the best out of knives that have these smaller aggregated carbide structures like the S90V. And so I've been finding this to be a really versatile and good dual grit sharpening method for a really broad range of steels to sort of bring the best out of everything. And if we sharpen everything the same way, then we isolate yet another variable and we pull more of that information that we're trying to get, which is what is the steel difference in these two knives. Anyway, let's get into carrying these bad boys, and I'll be back after a week of carry of each one with my thoughts on which one I like better. All right, friends, coming back to you after 2 weeks of carry, and I must admit that a clear winner has emerged in this battle of Gemini versus Wasp. We'll talk about the Wasp first. The Manly Knives Wasp is a really wonderful way to get your hands on some S90V. It's got incredible slicing geometry. In fact, I was looking at the way that it reflects light, and I do believe that it is just slightly hollow ground, which is awesome for slicing. I really feel like it's a safe slip joint because they've made this little collared area here that you kind of want to rest your fingers on, and if it's locked in there, there's no way this thing can cut you. So it's a smart design, it's a budget-friendly design in a super steel. The clip was effective, and overall, it's a lot of fun. I have to say, though, that something about the keen edge retention was not as pleasing to me. I don't know if this is a problem for S90V, or perhaps if it's this particular kind of S90V, or it could be that I'm just not that used to sharpening really, really high vanadium stainless steels. This is my first time with S90V, S110V, S125, all of those higher vanadium stainless steels on the sort of S30V spectrum. This is my first real foray into sharpening those. I mean, they've been out for years and years, but I just was into the budget knife category for a long time, and then I spent a long time just carrying a Spyderco military and M4. So a lot of these steels will be fresh and new to me. I haven't actually carried MagnaCut yet. I haven't carried K390 or any of these really heavy-hitting modern steels because I've been out of the mix for a while just carrying my Spyderco. Anyway, not super impressed on my first try with the fine edge holding. Like that initial keen edge that you get was gone almost immediately with this particular S90V, and I'm sure that the working edge would retain for quite some time, but me being where I'm at right now, I kind of prefer for knives to be enjoyable to sharpen and to hold that really keen edge for a good long while. That's just sort of where my enjoyment naturally flows to right now. That said, the Manly Knives Wasp in S90V is a great knife. It feels really good in the hand. Like there's just infinite sort of like handhold possibilities here with a really nice choke up option. And it's a really well thought through knife. If you're thinking about getting into higher vanadium steels and want to try out S90V, it's a really good option. I think I might actually like this better in the 12C27 or 14C28 version that they have, because it probably would give me a bit more of that fine edge retention that I am really enjoying right now. But holy cow, guys, the Kizer Gemini, like, I understand why the hype is there around this knife, or was there when this knife first came out. Ray Laconico, man, you nailed this. I mean, really, really nailed this. I love the feeling of aluminum. Coming back to this, I just remember that, like, aluminum is my favorite handle material. Aluminum and micarta are really close, but I really, really enjoy the feel of aluminum more than anything else for some reason. I don't know exactly why that is. And when I first, got a hold of this knife, I was like, oh yeah, it's just kind of rounded across the top, and it's kind of like round and squared off a bit in the back, and a nice little point, but it's just kind of, at first you look at it and it feels not shapeless, but very, very mildly shaped. But you get this thing in your hand and you start to realize, oh, that curve right there, like, Ray knew right where to put that curve. And this curve, as the point comes down, keeps that really surprisingly fine for a knife with this wide of a grind. And that little bit of forward lean feels so good in terms of, like, biting into stuff and catching in. And this little rounding here kind of allows your finger to cup around. And just like all of the ergonomics on this knife, even this little rounded section in the back, it sort of goes into the middle of the palm of your hand for a really pleasant fit for a small knife, with your blades sort of forward and fully ready for use. Put down at an angle, ready to cut stuff if you are using it for food prep. This thing is awesome. Like, I don't know exactly why. I mean, I know the detent is just right. The clip is just right. The black coating is really cool, in my opinion. The sort of iridescent look of the aluminum is great. The weight is, like, so light. The size proportions is just right for, like, this size of knife. This is the kind of knife that I think could make it worth it for me to actually carry a smaller knife, where I'm usually more of, like, your 3.5 inch guy. But this sort of proportion of being this easy to carry and this easy to get out, and the balance and precision of this design that Ray has done on this Gemini in the mini version here is so well balanced that I just really understand why this knife made some waves when it came out. I enjoyed this knife so much. It felt thin behind the edge. It felt like the grind was just right. It feels like it's strong enough, but slim enough. And guys, N690, never carried N690 before, but actually, probably part of the reason I was disappointed on the Manly Knives Wasp is because the Gemini actually surprised me with its fine edge retention. And I would love to hear if you guys have experiences of this, but I was really pleased with the edge that N690 took. And of course, it's not going to stay working edge sharp forever, but I actually was really pleased with the front end edge retention of that fine, kind of razor sharp, aggressive edge. It actually held that aggressive, keen initial edge right off the stones, that fresh edge. It actually held it, I would say, 3 or 4 times as long as this Manly Knives Wasp. And when you're only carrying something for a week, if you're cutting up a bit of cardboard, a bit of food, a bit of opening packages and stuff like that, that amount of fine edge retention, it gets you to, like, Thursday or Friday, and then it's dropped back really well, where this one, it was gone on, like, Tuesday, maybe, like 2 days in, and it was just down to this nice working edge. But I tried to strop it, and I was like, oh, I don't like how this is stropping back. It's just not coming back to that really fine point. It's settling into that working edge that this S90V is going to keep forever. But I really have to say, overall, I have enjoyed the Kizer Gemini more. I'm probably going to keep the Kizer Gemini for quite a long time. Unfortunately, you can't get this variant anymore. It was a Mojave Outdoors exclusive. And I'm very sad about that because the aluminum and the whole package is just done so tastefully well. But of course, Kizer still sells the Gemini in a bunch of different variants in a lot of good steels. So going to our tournament screen for this tournament, Gemini versus Wasp, the winner is clearly the Kizer Gemini. I'm not kidding you guys. In terms of how much I just naturally liked this knife, it's like in one of the top 10 experiences of my whole life. I just really kind of fell in love with this design. I think it's really, really well done. And I really enjoyed it even more than I anticipated, more than I thought I would. I'll check out the best scores now and give you some voiceover to let you know if the data lines up with what I thought. Okay, my guess from use is Wasp 160 grams, Gemini 125. Oh, the Wasp was not as good, 223. Okay, let's check out and see how keen the Gemini got to. That's interesting that the S90V didn't take as good of a dual grit edge. Oh, neither of them were as good as I would have thought, 183. Anyway, thanks for tuning in to this episode. If you want to see the wrap-up of the last tournament, I'll put a link on screen now. And for the rest of you guys, I will say peace out from the home slice. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Bye.